Hello everyone, I hope this is working, and welcome to those of you who are also streaming from home. I know there's quite a few of you joining from home as well. I am Mrs. Wigham. I am the director of sixth form here. Lots of you know me very well. I definitely know your children and wards very, very well, and it's really lovely to have you here for the final kind of parents information session of year 13, and it's a really, really important session, which is why I've kind of called you in so that you understand what's going to happen for the next 5 months. I will let Mrs. Boyd and Miss Klingett also introduce themselves.
So good evening. I think most people do know who I am. Miss Boyd. I have oversight of the sixth form, which is a senior school. I'm also in charge of the middle school and also in charge of the upper school. And this event is about way we're going to support the students when they're at Kingsdale School, when they also have left Kingsdale School, just go through the process.
And you probably also know me. My name is Miss Klingler, and I've been looking after exams for your kids for ever since they first did the banding test to join Kingsdale.
Right. So the reason why Miss Kling is going to be here to begin it with is because we're going through a couple of really, really important things. We're going to be finishing off with UCAS. So if UCAS doesn't apply to you at the end, you can head on out. But most of the things we are focusing on is going to be applicable to everyone here. And we're going to start off with our mock exams. So as you know, the mock exams are commencing on the 6th of February, and they are for a week. Now, the reason that these exams, we're talking about them, this is the timetable. Your students will have had a timetable and also a topic list for those exams, but these exams are crucial because these are the last exams they will sit in the hall before their formal national assessments, written assessments in the summer. And we are really passionate about every child sitting these exams as if they were their A-levels, which means really trying to get them in, cough, cold, anything like that. In their actual A-levels, they'll need to come in unless there's a really extenuating circumstance. We're really keen for our students to do these exams at the right time, in the right place, so that they're not having to do catch-up exams and not getting the feedback back. Because ultimately, the way that these exams work is the grade might not matter to your student, but it's the feedback from that exam, because it's the last time they're sitting that formal assessment in the hall before their actual exams. We want them to feel as confident as possible, as resilient as possible with those A-level exams. So we will be taking truancy really seriously. If your child cannot come for any reason, please make sure you ring us up. But our year 12 and 13 PAs will be ringing home, and we'll be trying to get students in for those exams if they are not there. And we know that sometimes students feel anxious about exams, and that's why they don't want to be there. But we really need to make sure that every student is sitting those exams unless they are physically incapable of doing so. And the moderation of this will therefore mean that the grade and the feedback they get if they sit at the time will be really, really valuable going forward. Do you have anything to say about February?
No, I mean, obviously, because we're in constraint with the half term being afterwards, we had to stick everything into a week. Luckily, with A levels and most people only having 3 or maximum 4 subjects, it kind of works out. There will be some clashes. However, I've managed to fit everything either into the morning or in the afternoon. So we're going to run clashes like we did last time in a complete realistic way. So if they happen to have 2 subjects or in the same slot on the same day, then one of these will officially be moved to the other session, so AM or PM session depending, and they will be supervised in between so that nobody else can either get information from them or they can get information from somebody else, so that the integrity of the exam is maintained and we can be sure that, you know, everybody's done it under the same conditions. Yeah, so I'll continue talking. So at the moment, I'm juggling obviously the internal exams and the external exams. So as far as the external exams have gone, I have asked all our year 13s to check the entry lists, because if you imagine I'm doing all the 13s, all the 12s, all the 11s and all the 10s, which does happen to be rather a lot of students. So with a preliminary entry where I essentially just dump in the entire class, some mistakes may happen. And obviously the students themselves will need to take responsibility, and they've seen this entry list. They have also seen how expensive some of these A levels are. And rather strangely, because I don't know exactly how that works out, but and they have seen how much money and time and energy the school invests in trying to get them through these exams, and they've signed this to say there's no problems with it. And on the basis of that signature, they have now already received their individual examination timetable for the summer. So they can plan with that. They can already do their little revision timetable and everything. If there are clashes, and invariably every year there are clashes, they will be resolved in the same way as for the February exams, on a one-by-one basis, on an individual basis, as soon as I start the actual sitting for the exams. So that's where we are. Let me remind you about contingency day. This cohort obviously hasn't had any real examination in that sense, so they're not necessarily aware of the contingency day. Contingency day is a day after all the exams are over, so that the 8th of June, which is it tends to always be a Wednesday, where in case of a national emergency situation, whatever, all the exams of a certain day would be then rescheduled onto that day. So normally, in a slightly anti-royal way, I always used to say this is in case the Queen dies, because obviously the whole country goes in shutdown then, as we've experienced, and then that national day, all those exams from that day would be put into that day. Clearly, I can't say this anymore, so you have to imagine another emergency. But the point is, you have to be available on the 28th of June. Having said that, if you've already sat all your exams and you know nothing's happened and you've sat the exams, then obviously you're welcome to do whatever it is you want on the 28th of June or before that, whenever your last exam is. But in advance, you have to plan for it. Because if you're not available on that day and you were told about contingency day, then that would be deemed an unauthorized absence and you can't really have a reason for it. So therefore, that exam then would be marked 0, and obviously a 0 out of 2 or 3 papers would be harmful to the overall grade.
Just some points for the exams in the summer and for the exams in the for the exams for February mock, subject teachers actually are not in exam hall. So they're actually invigilators of the exam in February and also the exam in the summer. So I know some parents and some students are really worried. Myself and Ms. Kling are in every single exam, and that's because sometimes they really do get stressed just for exam. So I've been here a long time and they are sort of stressed and I sort of have a meltdown. They are usually quite good like that. So something that's really, really important that the student understand is a difference between doing a mock in February and doing summer. What I mean by that, if you've got a 9 a.m. exam, it's not time to say, oh, miss, all right, I come in at 11 and they can just sit that exam, A-level exam. If for any reason they are going to be late coming to exam, they have to let Miss Kling and myself know in that morning. Now, the reasons behind that, if the exam is an hour and a half exam, they arrive at 11 o'clock, they might not be able to sit that exam because everyone else in the country sat the exam. So exam board will say, well, someone's spoken to them, they know the question, etc. If there is a genuine breakdown of a bus, etc., what the students do, if they do call us, what usually happens, I get member staff, or usually myself, I actually go and meet the student at, they might have a bus might have broken down. I actually go and meet the student and I can justify to the exam board, say, I've been with that student at all time. They've not spoken to any individual. So we are getting the students to actually understand that, because they're quite used to, doing a mock and the late is okay. It's not okay on the exam day of an A-level exam. So there are times they do have a meltdown. For the year 13s, most of them do have my school mobile, and most of them all do know me very well. So, and most of them, and I know parents might be surprised, they actually do send me a message, oh, Miss Boyd, I'm stuck. What will happen is I would go, let's say quite a few of them ring, I actually get teachers go and meet where they are. Reason behind that, we just want to say to the exam board, we've been with a student at all time. I can sign that they haven't cheated. So when they do come to the exam, to sit that exam. So it's really, really important that they do turn up to the exam at the correct time for the AM exam, also the afternoon exam.
And if I can come in there, this goes for absences and for latenesses, because this is not something, I may well know you very well and I may well trust you with my life, but that doesn't go anywhere because it's the exam board that makes that decision. So for everything, it's really good to have a second witness, and same thing when even if you're really, really ill, it's really good to have the medical certificate for that, because I have to, in case of an unavoidable absence, I have to submit that to the exam board, and it isn't my decision, it is the exam board's decision. So if the evidence is there, and then I have to say, yes, I support this, I have to say that well, then the exam board normally goes with what we say. If, however, we're saying, oh, I don't know, a cat was run over in front of me and I was really upset, and there's nobody to say that, then clearly that's pushing, because the exam board, and as much as I try to be fair to everybody and try to treat everybody the same way, the exam board obviously has the onus of that. They don't only have ours, they have hundreds and thousands of people sitting the exam at the same time, and it's essential that everybody in everything open and very much put there.
Just in case, I don't know if Ms. Clinic, just in case she doesn't stay, just that arrangement about exam results, picking up exam results. Parents can only pick up exam results if the son and daughter position. So if you come to me in the day, or Ms. Klinger say, I'm picking up for John, and they haven't given permission, you won't be able to pick up the student's exam.
And on which note, I have still got quite a lot of GCSE exams in my cupboard that people haven't picked up, which have been ready to be picked up since December 21. You see, that doesn't go to our students who weren't with us at GCSE, but for our ones, they're there. So essentially, if you didn't need them, then you're going to get them at the same time as these certificates, which will arrive in November 2023. Okay, so the real certificates, the ones that are worth money, that cost £50 a piece of paper to replace, again, only you can pick them up unless you have given written permission to somebody else, and they then have to ID them.
Another really important, if students are travelling, not going to be here the day of the exam results, they must make sure they email Ms. Clinic in advance. Because of the day of the exam results might be busy, and especially those who apply for university or BTEC or courses, you do need to make sure you get your grades. So if you are not going to be here on the day, you must send Ms. Kling an email to say, I'm not going to be here, so she can email you your results. On the form of results, there's a form, which I'm sure Ms. Kling is going to explain, about remarks, and that needs to be signed on the day of the results. So do you want to explain that about the form?
Yeah, so essentially, obviously, this is if something goes wrong, hoping it does. If you end up with a result that you don't think it, then the first step I would need, because exams are confidential between the candidate and the exam board. So even as I walk up and down through the exams all the time, I'm not allowed to stop and check what they're writing, of course, okay? Because this is confidential. I have to make sure that the paper gets closed, gets sent off and everything. Same way, if I think something is weird, then the first situation would ask for that paper back. Many of the exam boards these days, this actually doesn't cost anything. So and it can happen relatively quickly. So the sooner I have a signature saying, yes, please get those papers for me, you are giving me permission to ask for them. I can't do that. Even if I think this is completely wrong, you need that paper, I can't do anything until you have, as you parents, okay? So again, if this is going to delay the whole, because clearly on results day, I'm up here with asking questions. By the time I actually get to answer the phone for anybody who might urgently want later on in the day, so you won't be the priority in front of me. Okay?
Any questions? Entry.
In the same way as we're doing. So if there are 2 exams, certain regulations, so for instance, because maths in the subjects affected by some cheat area school. Maths is in the afternoon generally. Maths must not an afternoon. So if, say, maths clashes with German, then the German exam can be. The student would have to fill in A4, and we then, one of my invigilators, that's why I need some letters, one of my invigilators would then be looking after that student and sitting there while they were having lunch. The lunch would be by the student and be looked at in. You have to be able to say they had no access to any media, they had no access to students, they had no access to. Okay, but they can revise. I'll check, but if there are 3 and they over, there's limits. So if it's longer, then I can't remember, 5.5 hours. And it gets solved on a 1-to-1 supervision by the head teacher and the parent and everything.
Yeah, there have been times here when some students do have overlap in the GCSE or A level. Usually happen is they have sat the exam a bit later but supervise at all time. And they have said, well, rather than try and do next after next because it's quite tiring, they have done it a bit late, or the sleepover does mean filling forms, but there are times when they do have a break and a gap. And what McLean was saying, usually say there's 2 clash in the afternoon, they do have the option of choosing which one to do, but it won't be in the case of maths. Then in the case of maths, they'll have to sit that, but the other subjects you can. So if it's a clash, and there are times when there's 2 exams, especially if you do,
it's got to be more hours. If
yeah,
one exam is only A level, then was. So then I can move this, then it break.
Yeah.
And if it runs over time and they dance on the same day anyway, we add, then the last exam can be applied for with for tiredness, so they can get a cut. But only if it I'm not.
Yeah, you can. Thank you so much. So yeah, just to let you know that all students have been asked to sign for their exam entries, like Ms. Klinger said. There are about 25 currently year 13s who haven't done that. That will mean that the deadline is on Friday, so you just need to go and sign, make sure that the entries are correct, and you also then get your exam timetable, and on your exam timetable you'll discover when your exams are for summer. They start, written exams start on the 15th of May 2023, and anyone who does further maths, poor you, because you do have exams on the last week of exams on the 26th and the 27th. They're the final A-level exams there. So there will be practical and speaking exams prior, and as you might know, that there's been some coursework prior to that as well. So if there is any queries with access arrangements or anything like that before the last exams, make sure you come speak to us so that we can sort that out before the exam. So sorry, it's been quite exam heavy. I just wanted Ms. Klinger to be here so that you could touch base with everything in terms of exam timetables.
Just on the timetable, the timetable for exams also going to be sent to the parent. I always believe that it should be sent to parent. I'm a parent, I've got 2 kids. I can never remember what day is his exam, and I just dread it the day he's missing his A level. We all have to understand the kids aren't best as well at times. And so what will do happen is you will also get emailed the exam date, because it does happen, believe it or not, where kids make an error and get the dates mixed up with the exam. So you will be emailed the day, and if a student is missed the exam or you don't, they do get a phone call. So I always do the night before, I just check all the exam, which student's supposed to be here. And they'll just be called. So you will get a copy of the exam timetable for your son or daughter.
Yeah, don't worry, we won't just leave them. We will be ringing you incessantly. But again, sometimes there's been cases where students haven't got their phones on or anything like that. So now moving away from exams and moving into kind of preparation in the next 4 months left of year 13 and what's going to be happening over the next 4 months of year 13. So based on kind of subjects and how students have been doing in subjects, there is also interventions. This is published on the school website as well, but I'm just going to talk you through some of the interventions. So obviously, you know your students' attainment. You may have seen their kind of October exam grades. You've also had parents' evening, so you're kind of aware about where they are in terms of where they currently are and where they need to be for those offers or for their targets. Now, we have interventions running before February half term, and then we've got different ones that are going to be starting after February half term. But this is just kind of the things that are happening now in English, maths, science, French, geography and history. These are all really, really useful. I always say, yes, it's great to do a revision by yourself, but better to have a teacher there who knows the exam spec, potentially examiner as well, who can really go through this with you. So if your student is struggling with any of those subjects, make sure that they have got that kind of in their timetable. Some students have to attend certain compulsory revision slots, and you'll be emailed if that applies to you.
And just to let you know, we are going to send the PowerPoints to all the Year 13 parents as well. Yeah. So sorry, we should have said at the beginning. So we are going to send the PowerPoints to all the Year 13 parents.
And these are the interventions that are happening in terms of creative arts, music, drama, PE, IT and economics. So ultimately, we know that you Year 13s working really hard, but we want to make sure that you have got support in every single aspect of that. It might just be that you're stuck on a particular concept. It might be that you're stuck on a particular topic. All of these revision sessions and interventions will be helpful for that. Now, we're just going to go on to revision expectations. I always say that your August grade is made in December, and I genuinely mean that, because unfortunately, unlike when I was doing A levels and many of you in this room, when we could do AS levels and kind of have half the exam even done before we enter into Year 13, you guys as Year 13s have been hugely disadvantaged by the fact you're now kind of doing your first exams, your first proper exams, or your A levels. So we have to recognise with you, but also that you're doing a 2-year course, and it's a really intense 2-year course. And cramming doesn't work, unfortunately, when you've been having a 2-year course. So your August exams are made, those results are made from the work you're doing in December and January. So students should be revising for each subject already. Most subjects are aiming to finish teaching content in February, March time. May sometimes is a bit late for those people, but we have really tried to organise our lessons so that we cover all of the content in really loads of detail, but then we can finish and start doing revision as a class. That kind of takes off some of the pressure. You might feel like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can cover all of that content by myself. But each student now knows what they need to know, because they all have specifications for each subject. So each student knows exam boards for each subject, and a specification is a brilliant way to start, because basically it's a list of every single thing the student needs to know for each subject. Obviously, each subject has a different specification, which is different per exam board. So you know from the topic list what exam boards you're doing, and again, what subjects you're doing. What I would really recommend doing as kind of interactive activity with them is kind of just going through that specification and using like red, amber and green to go through and think what these bits are really secure with. That's a green. What bits are we kind of secure with but not really recalling very well, and what bits are we really stuck on? That's a really effective way, and it might be a bit more of a collaborative activity for you to do at home. And that specification should guide them. And we talk about topic lists, but now is the time where we kind of park topic lists, and this is our official topic list. This is our specification with all of our bullet points we need to know. They will not be able to ask you anything that isn't on the specification. So that is literally your kind of cheat sheet, as it were. You don't need to know about anything that's not on the specification. It will only be tested. So what I've said as a rough guide is that students should aim to cover all of the content about 3 times. That's where it gets in secure kind of cognitive memory. Now, if you were smart and you revised well, that means that you have covered everything before your February exams, and then you've got 2 more months to do that twice over again. So really making use of your free periods, your study periods, and after school and the weekends to make sure that you can cover that material 3 times a charm. And basically, yeah, ultimately cramming does not work. There's simply too much content, and we are, as teachers, we're really happy to mark exam questions. I teach politics, economics and history, and lots of students come to me with their exam questions, and I'm happy to mark. So practice exam questions can be a really effective way of working. So we will be going through this with them in form times, obviously, and we can help them with anything, any questions they might have in their revision timetables. But ultimately, doing things over and over again is the most helpful to get that kind of secure in knowledge. Now, we know that obviously this year have been particularly disadvantaged because they're the COVID pandemic year. They didn't sit those national GCSEs, and lots of the comments I get from year 13 says, I still don't quite know how to revise. And obviously we are here to help. You guys are here to help them to understand and define their particular revision technique. And we have changed stuff to reflect the fact that these guys are sitting their exams for the very first time, national exams, by making Friday form time all about revision and all about learning techniques. But what I would say just quickly is just really be aware of passive revision. We're really about effectiveness and productivity, and passive revision looks really impressive because it looks like you're revising, but it's what we call passive revision, which is kind of not helping you to, it's helping you to recognize information but not recall information. So if you're reading through your notes, if you're typing out your notes, if you're highlighting information in text, and if you're listening to lecture recordings, all of those we term as passive revision, because it looks like you're doing a lot and you could be spending a lot of time doing that. But ultimately, if you're not using that information to do anything with, it then turns into passivity. However, we've got some lovely active revision techniques. And again, I might be kind of teaching you to suck lemons for some of you who are fantastic at revising, but if you're really struggling with revision, flashcards are a fantastic way to start. How I revised my A-levels was I always got an A3 piece of paper and I put everything from that module down, and then I condensed it into an A4, then an A5, then to kind of go smaller and smaller until there was a single word. Mnemonics, songs and rhymes. Again, I don't think I'd have passed my history A-level without having my mnemonics and looking at acronyms and making sure I was able to understand them in a way that I could understand. I know it sounds pretty primary school, but genuinely whatever gets things into their cognitive memory and whatever gets them to be able to use that in the exam. I think teaching others is generally the best way of doing that, and that's why we've got little rooms at the top of sixth form that can be used by group study, because generally teaching others is so much better as a way of revising, because it allows you to understand the gaps in your own knowledge and allows you to kind of elaborate and bring some information in. So I don't know if you're all prepared to be taught about A-level physics, but maybe that was the time to kind of get a willing participant to come and be lectured in a particular field, because generally just sitting there listening to their lessons might be educational for you, and it's certainly beneficial for them. Study groups we've talked about, and we're really encouraging. I've seen some year 13s who are really keen on FaceTiming their friends and doing that as a revision activity. We've got rooms available, and again after school there's all the rooms available in the sixth form centre, and again finding those people from your course that know the gaps that you don't know and kind of forming a group with them is really helpful, and together you will pull yourself through each other's A-levels. Mind maps, and then I've said practice exam questions, which is particularly helpful for science as well. Now, with all of this going on, we understand that year 13 is a really difficult year for sixth formers. And again, some of you might be sitting here and your child/ward, this might be the first time you're going through year 13, or this might be the sixth time you're going through year 13. But ultimately, we understand as a sixth form team that this can be a really difficult time. Year 13s, you might be feeling stressed, tearful, anxious. Parents you might be seeing crying, stressed, moody, and ultimately we are here because we are wanting to know, with our experience, we're wanting to every student here with that, because it's not the be all and end all, and we want to make sure that students feel like they are still humans at the end of this process. So I'm just going to talk you through some of the pastoral support we've got on offer. Students, you know about this already, but I think it's sometimes helpful so that you know what we can signpost people to, particularly if people we notice are struggling a little bit at home. So our tutors are super important. Every morning tutors can check in with students. They sometimes see them more than you might do, because they can see how they are feeling that day, and often tutors will say to me, oh, Annie, I didn't think that guy was looking particularly great today, or I'm worried about this student because I don't think that they are very happy. And that's a really good way of just checking in. So make sure you're going to tutor time so you can be checked in on. And then the tutors then refer to heads of year. So the head of year for year 13 is Miss Fatima. She is brilliant. She really cares about each of these year 13s individually, and will be kind of giving, she's brilliant just listening. She listens very well, and she has some brilliant advice, and she can be the first port of call. And she makes referrals to the learning mentors and the school counsellors. So our learning mentors, that comes in a referral, and that is someone to talk through and kind of be coached through some of the big decisions that they're making, and can help with some therapy and talking therapies days, as can the school counsellor. So we've got amazing school counsellors, Mr. Augustus and Aretha, and they both can help students through some really difficult times. We understand it's a very difficult time. We want to make sure that this is a really easy process, and therefore we can get those people where they need to be. We're also starting Wellbeing Wednesdays with Miss Fatina, who I've said before is brilliant. She is really into mindfulness, and she has been running in her previous years, she's been running wellbeing sessions. So on Wednesday morning, she's starting mindfulness sessions. And sometimes I think that's so useful just to kind of zoom out from all the noise and all the stress. So she's got that every Wednesday morning from 8:15 to 8:30 in D11. Consider kind of signposting your child there or ward there if you're feeling like actually that could be really helpful for them. I know that's a really brilliant way to start a day, and it's only 15 minutes. And generally, I think when you've got all these competing demands on your time, 15 minutes spent well at the beginning of the day can be really helpful. We also have drop-in sessions every Thursday lunchtime with the counsellor Aretha, and that could be like it's a really short-term thing. There's just a bit of a crisis point. If we know about it, we can refer them to her on the week, and it can be a one-off session, just crisis management, or just needing someone to talk to who's not myself or Mrs. Boyd or Miss Fatina, someone completely anonymous that they can really kind of tell the truth to about what they're going through. And again, Aretha can then refer into learning mentors or school counsellors if that is necessary. We also have a new person coming on board called Emma from Glass Pond, and she is amazing at coaching. So she does resilience coaching, and she also does kind of like motivation. So if you feel like your child/ward has kind of not lost motivation or not quite understanding where they should be going, we can again refer through that in the pastoral way. But we're always here. I know them all well, so I will be able to tell if something's wrong, hopefully, if I see them regularly enough. But we are here to support, and genuinely all we want them to do is be safe and happy ultimately, and then A-levels are a secondary thing to that. We also do offer academic support. So as you've seen before, we have subject interventions that happens all week with class teachers. Every Friday, I run a drop-in for anyone who is struggling and just can't work out how to revise or how to do this revision timetable. I'm here because I can help them. I've got loads of resources and lots of experience in just helping a student understand the best ways to revise. And I'm here, I mean, I'm here longer than that, as you know, but I am here to help. So if anyone needs that, that's in the ILC from 3:45 to 4:45 on a Friday, just to kind of, might just be a one-off kind of thing, or it might be a regular thing where they need some extra study support. Now, study rooms. ILC, I'm trying to see if anyone was here this morning when the ILC didn't have any lights on at 6:40, but we do have sixth formers who get to school at 6:30 and go to the ILC. I'm not advocating or condoning like massive amounts of study periods, but what I'm saying is we are open. We are warm, we are bright, and we are, well, not bright this morning, but bright normally. And we are here for students if they find working at home a challenge. So I know I'm a morning person, I'm forced to be because I'm a teacher, but I like getting to work really early and getting on with my day very early. If you find that your student isn't working very well at home and is an early bird, point them to the ILC. It's open 12 hours a day, and I'm here until about 7:30 or 8. And then if you are still here at 7:38, you move across to the atrium or this area where Miss Boyd tends to be. Sleeping here. But we are here, and that basically we want to say that if home study is difficult for whatever reason, or they want to study with their friends, they will be here and be able to be. Now, we're not saying that they need to be working a 12-hour day, far from it, but what we're saying is we are here and the space is available for the people that need it.
And it's not compulsory to be here late. I am here late, but I do leave at some point. And last couple of weeks, close up to Mark, a lot of year 13s actually stay late. And if they do stay late and I do go home, which is about 9, they sit in CR1, CR2, CR3, the conference room. If they're going to do that, I do need to know. And what I generally do, there is a security that's here. I allow them to stay in CR1, CR2, CR3, as long as parents are aware. I also would say you need to make arrangement for how they get home, because of course, if they're going to stay very late, I am sort of skeptical about arrangement. Sometime if they're going to stay late, I'm here. I'm happy to give them a lift, but if they decide to stay past 9 or 10, I'll be gone by then. And close up to the exam day, some of them will. So there's the years I've been here and the year sixth form's been open, you tend to find close towards the summer holidays, year 13 tend to want to stay a bit later. They can also come in a weekend, but they just have to let me know. They want to come Saturday and Sunday just to revise. So the students just have to let me know. And it's not compulsory for them to be here late. So I don't always encourage them to stay here that late at all. There's sometimes I say, look, no, you do need to go home, get some rest.
Absolutely, because we want them to, again, have a bit of a balance. And it might seem like, particularly as you approach the exams, that there's no sort of ability to have a balance. But as we know, the more time you spend working, you do need breaks and you do need to spend time doing the things that you love. And that's part of our role as the people who care for them, is to make sure that they are protected in that time where they can relax, even just for a bit. Oh yeah, and sorry, the cause of concern, if any students have been hugely below their target grades, I have met with parents and carers already and had those meetings and interventions and strategies. And again, when the February results come out, if there are massive gaps from where their student is and where they want to be, we can review the study period. So if we know that they're actually not working very well at home, whatever reason, because sometimes home can be a bit distracting or difficult to work in, then we can mandate them to come in a little bit for their free periods as well. So that's our academic support. Now, the next thing is form times. Obviously, we have changed the way we do form times so that every form time is purposeful and valuable. I write all the form time material, and particularly I think we should have a look at kind of what we've done with kind of we'll start with PhD. So at the moment we're doing an employability module, and each student has had their CV, they've written a CV. Each student has now looked at a cover letter, how to write a cover letter. Last lesson we looked at assessment centres. So all of that is the things I wish I knew before I was applying for jobs that I would love students to know now. So the reason why tutor periods are compulsory is because actually we do some really valuable personal development curriculum in that. And each student in year 13 who's attended form times at the end of this will understand how to do psychometric tests, will understand how to really excel in some of these things. They will have mock interviews, practice interviews, and ultimately that's a really important part of our offering as a sixth form. The next thing is Transition Thursdays. So before Christmas, they were called UCAS/Apprenticeship Thursdays. They're now called Transition Thursdays, because what we've done is all of the tutors and myself have thought, what do we wish we knew before we were let out into the world? I don't know why no one told me about mortgages or debt or taxes or anything like that, but we've put together a program, and each tutor's told me 2 or 3 things that they wish they knew. The last week we learned about credit score. I learned about what a credit score was when I was about 25, and that is not good enough. So we really want students to understand the wider world, because we know that they're going out into that in 6 months' time actually. So that part of that is really important. We also look at how to budget and how not to get into kind of that student debt, which is like very easy to when you've got a card and you just keep on tapping it as well. On Friday, because of the way that they haven't done exams, we've changed the way that we've done Friday form times, and each Friday form time they learn about a different way of revision, and therefore they can then practice it as part of that form time. So we look at the ways that you can do the Lightman technique, which is with the flashcards where you kind of put them into different piles. Ask your student about that, because I'm sure that they have found that sometimes really, really useful, and look at why we procrastinate and how to get kind of over that. So all of those kind of sessions will help them in the long term. And then assembly is really important as well, because that's where they get their really key notices. As you know, maybe the UCAS deadline is tomorrow, and it's really interesting to see the correlation of people who attend form time and the people who actually handed in their UCAS way long time ago, and the people who are coming up to me today and thinking, oh, Mrs. Wigham, can I apply? And I'm saying, oh no, it's too late actually, you kind of missed the deadline, you missed the boat on that one. So really important that they attending these things. The people that I can see currently here all do attend those things, and it's really important that they continue to do so, because that's where we can give our key messages. So how can you support? We've talked about the school's role, and this is just quickly to talk about how you can support during this time. As you know, this is a really difficult time. You might have seen kind of changes or concerns in your student already. The first thing is kind of just a very basic kind of thing, which is to be patient and understanding. They might be acting differently. They might just be more tearful. They might need more, just support. And what we can do as people who care about these students is just be patient with them and understand that we are there, and we can be the big picture person. We can say, look, it's all going to be okay. In 5 months this won't be a problem anymore. In 5 months it's going to be over. So that's our first thing. The next thing, I'm not sure what your child/ward's bag looks like, but open it up and you might get a shock, or you might feel very proud of them. There could be lots of different rumpled pieces of paper, but sometimes it's really helpful to have someone next to you to help with the patient kind of like organising of notes, because that's generally really, really helpful. And maybe sitting down with them and doing that specification ragging, or maybe sitting down with them and doing their revision timetable might be really helpful. Eating and sleeping. Sometimes I get emails from students at 3:50 a.m. and I think, oh gosh, are you okay? Make sure they do need 8 to 10 hours of sleep, and as much as we can, reducing screen time and helping them eat at normal times, eat healthily, eat well, and making sure that they are sleeping, because ultimately you can't do exams on an empty tank. You can't do the things that you need to do in year 13 without looking after yourself first. And then test them on topics. You might become an expert in geography A level maybe over the next 4 months, but test them on topics and be involved, because they want to see that you might not be a geographer by background, but it might be really helpful for you to be on board then. So just quickly, we've mentioned results day. I'm talking about this because this is the goalpost, isn't it? This is where we're going to get to, and it's going to be on the 17th of August, which is a Thursday. Results day can be one of two things, because you have most students have about 2 months after their exams finish until results day. And depending on how they do the things we've just talked about, those 2 months could be the best 2 months of their life. They can have relaxing, they can go on holiday, and they can feel really content knowing that they've done the absolute best they could, and therefore those exam results are in the hands of something else and they can relax. Or they can spend the next 2 months being really, really stressed about exams and not having the ability to impact those results. So I would really encourage, just think about that 17th and think about that summer. If they're thinking about relaxing now too much, or thinking I don't want to start working, just say, remember that summer, you've got 2 months of fun. Don't ruin that by not working hard now. So results can be picked up in school, and we would advise, if you are applying for university this year, to try as much as possible to come and pick up results. I was saying earlier, I had to arrange a boy who was in North Korea to get his results, and he didn't get the things that he wanted, and therefore we had to go through clearing, and he didn't have any internet, and it was so stressful. So please make sure you don't do any holidays too far away. Obviously you can do some, but again, results day is a day where there's some real jubilation, real excitement, and there can be some disappointment, but it's never the end of the road. We are here on results day. Last results day of my last school, I was there till 8 on the phone to various universities, helping students get places through clearing. We'll talk about clearing in a second. Now, on the morning of results day, they obviously won't sleep the night before because it is horrendous. I still remember that night very well. The UCAS track then updates the next morning, and UCAS will update from about 8 a.m. if they have applied to university, and tell them if they have got into the offers. Now, sometimes that's a really good thing to check in the morning, because it means that they can kind of go into school knowing that they've got the right things. And sometimes it can be difficult because they know they haven't got in, but they don't quite know what the grades are. So I would advise, it always crashes for some reason. The infrastructure of it doesn't work for that day, but would advise you to have a look at that, because that will inform the rest of your day in terms of clearing and what support you need for school. Now, the clearing process. So clearing essentially means, some of you have done this before, but what clearing means is that any courses which are unfilled currently get advertised through the year, but on results day, they will have a big picture of people who haven't got in, and therefore offers able students to go to different courses or different universities to get in at slightly reduced or lowered grades. So I would, this is obviously in a worst case scenario where they haven't got into the university that they wanted to go to, and there will be lots of support here. We'll have phones, we'll be in CR1 and 2. Yeah.
I'll just explain. I mean, been here for quite a long time. Kingsdale student actually likes to open it at school for some reason, and I think it's just having moral support. I think sometimes they do panic at home. If I open, I haven't got them, they don't want to be there on their own. What I sometimes do, the sixth one, they text me, if I've done all right, Miss Boy, I don't respond, I can't respond. So Miss Klinger, the exams officer, will get the exam results before, especially put in envelopes. I generally will know the night sort of. And there are loads of staff. There's not one child at Kingsdale, the years I've had the sixth one open, who have gotten through clearing. There are times where they won't get their first choice or their second choice. So at school, the CR1, CR2, CR3, all are open and parents are welcome to come. Sometimes I know what's like a parent. I've gone through it with my 2 kids. I know the school's helping. I also get stressed as well. So the parents are welcome to come. So if the parent want to come in that day and help support, there'll be loads of phones. There'll be lots of rooms that's private as well, where the students will come in and we'll start ringing up for clearing. It has changed from how it used to be in the O system before. Clearing first thing in the morning. The clearing is not going to open first thing in the morning as it used to be. It will open before. There are also newspapers that you can actually buy. So the Times and the Guardian, they have actually a list of all the universities. Just got all the courses that they haven't filled for clearing. But I do advise that the students do come, whether they choose to be at home or come here first thing in the morning, so they can get the best choice of clearing. Sometimes they come late and all the good places have gone. So it's for the clearing system. Everyone I've known has always gotten full clearing. I know we're going to go and talk about the UCAS. I've always advised a student, there's 5 choices if you apply, apart from medicine, where it's 4 choices. I always say pick the first one you want to go to. And in the second one, I would pick the one that offers you the lowest grade. It doesn't make sense if you pick, unless you're really confident yourself, it doesn't make sense you pick the first one, which say A star AA, second one A star AA. If you don't get the first or the second one, you get rejection. So I always advise them, it's better to pick a first one for where you really want to go to your choice. The second one, you might want to pick one that offers you slightly lower grade because you've picked those 5 universities because you like that. Remember, during clearing, you might go to university that you didn't pick before. So I honestly, I'm saying from bottom of my heart, the parents don't really need to worry about. There are loads of staff here today at school on clearing. There's their subject teachers, and every child at King's Head, there's always someone they can go to and speak to. So we'll be here first early in the morning. There'll be rooms available. If parents want to also come that day, it's fine. So there's not one child I've known who's not got in through clearing at all. So there will be someone here to support throughout the whole of the clearing. And sometimes clearing can take a couple of days. And the reason why, they pick a choice and they say yes, they can reject afterwards, because sometimes students pick a university, then a couple of weeks later another university advertise again because someone decide not to take. They can change their mind up to that sort of stage.
Yeah, so as Miss Boyd said, it is first come, first served in terms of clearing. It's a bit strange like that. They will take the first people who can act. So if you are quite worried or a bit concerned and you get that email from UCAS saying they haven't got in, just come in straight away and we can sort them out there. The next thing is appeals for grade. So there might be that there is some sort of error. You can see that in your modules, and when you get your exam results, you get your raw marks, and it might be that you've got very high in other grades and then a noticeable anomaly. What I would say is definitely we will have flagged that up before when we look at the exam results the day before.
Just comment on the appeals for grades.
Yeah.
Ms. Kling's very good. What usually happens when your result comes for every single year 30, myself and Ms. Klinger, we look at how many marks you're off from an A, B, C, D. So I would look at certain ones. Mrs. Klinger will look at certain ones. I put every single child's name. So before you come in, I'll say to you, right, John, you're 2 marks off an A in geography. You're 1 mark off in chemistry. So that way we already say, do you want to have a remark? So we actually do, the students, when they do come in, they know how the grade boundary, what they are for the next grade. Now, the reason behind that, if they're only 1 or 2 marks, what we usually say, as Ms. Kling said before, there is a paper to sign. What we don't automatically say to the students, go and straight and ask for your paper to remark. Grades can go down as well as up. What usually happens, if the students say yes, and let's say it's chemistry, biology, where I teach, I would ask permission from the student. They say yes, I will ask for their papers back. The exam board sends the papers back and it sends a mark scheme. So the students will get a copy. If I'm the teacher, I would get a copy of the chemistry. I'll look at the paper thoroughly, look at the mark scheme thoroughly. Where I see, I think I'm right, there's no way they can put the grade down. Then I'll say, well, yes, go for remark. We don't get the student to say remark straight away because marks can go down as well as up. So the day they do get their results, they will know how far they're off from one grade to the other, because Miss Kling will also having a pack which tells when they get an A or B or A star, there is a grade boundary where they can see how far they're from one grade to the other, to, you know, so they can make up mind whether they want to get remarks or not.
If they did miss their offer, because of that, the university do hold their place for them. So sometimes that can take a couple of days for the remark to come back. I had the situation in my last school where 2 boys had been mismarked in politics, and they'd got a C rather than an A star, and they got marked again, and they both got into their first choices. So don't panic about that. If there is a remark, the university holds the place on for them, and they are in a contractual agreement because that wasn't the correct mark. So is anyone in here applying for Art Foundation? That I don't know, I don't want to talk for people if they don't need that. Okay, that's fine. Apprenticeships, is anyone here applying for apprenticeships? No, that's fine. So we'll just talk about UCAS to finish off. So we are just quickly going to go through the UCAS process. As you know, your wonderful Year 13s therefore have all applied through UCAS, and some of them have applied quite recently, and most of them have applied quite a long time ago, and are sitting on some really exciting offers now for universities. So we have heard back from most of these places. Cambridge is tomorrow, but yeah, we've had offers from Birmingham, Bristol, Glasgow, Southampton, and I'm just going to tell you a bit about the people that might be very slow to offer. So just to kind of reassure you slightly, so if you have applied to any of the following places, if you haven't heard back from them yet, I would not be concerned, because Bristol, Durham, Edinburgh, Imperial, LSE, St Andrews, UCL and Warwick tend to be quite slow at replying. Now, don't be worried if someone else has got a different offer for a different course for the same university as you've applied for. They do their applications in a very different way. So sometimes they do it subject by subject, and sometimes they just do it in blocks of subjects. So if you haven't heard anything, don't worry, don't assume it's bad news. We've only had very, very few rejections, so don't worry if they haven't heard back from these places. Last year, my last offers were from UCL, and they were in May, so they can get back to you up until May. Hopefully you'll have your answers before then, but they can take until May, particularly with medicine. Sometimes they have a much later kind of comeback. So don't worry if you are waiting on one of these offers. Don't lose hope, don't lose motivation. You will potentially get in those offers. Yeah, I've been so impressed. The quality of the personal statements, the way that your children have conducted themselves has been absolutely brilliant. It's been lovely to get to know them through that UCAS process. So you may have known, now you're getting your offers through, what types of offers there are. Now, there are 3 offers that you can potentially get, and I know there's been all 3 of these for people in Year 13. So the first one is an unconditional offer. That means that it doesn't matter the final grade, the student, even if they get all U's, will be guaranteed a place at that university. Now, these kind of offers are very, very rare. So we have had 2 of these offers so far, and they tend to be for courses that I think you were saying before.
Yeah. It's very rare for universities to give unconditional offer. There are quite a lot of reasons. Some reason they might be really fascinated about certain individual, and their GCSE is generally really good. And other lot of reason is sometimes there's not a lot of students that apply for that particular. And we are aware, some parents are all aware, if some courses can't run, university will have to shut some of those courses down. So some courses are not very competitive, or not many people apply for those courses. So sometimes to attract some of the students, they do give unconditional offer. Sometimes they might like something very particular, and it's always for certain type of courses. So there's some courses, you know, you're never going to get unconditional offer, you know, medicine's one of them, or some of the sciences, or I've never known Imperial to ever give unconditional offer. So depending on some of the courses, we like and we don't like unconditional offer. And the reason why we always say to the students who've got unconditional offer, it doesn't mean that you must just sort of give up, not focus and not do your A levels, but you need to sort of work hard towards that. So there are some reasons why they do make unconditional offers. So some of them might be the type of course you apply, and some of them might be circumstances as well.
Yeah, so some of the reasons given this year for unconditional offers are actually to do with their personal statements or their experience. So it could be that they're applying for music production and could have a really amazing wealth of knowledge. If your child is opting to take a gap year, you will see unconditional offers next year because they will already have their grades. So therefore, that offer will not be conditional on anything because every condition has been fulfilled. But yeah, again, just echo Miss Boyd, if you have got an unconditional offer, please do not take your foot off the accelerator. You deserve the grades you deserve, and you haven't put a year and a half of really hard work in then not to get A-level grades. A-level grades follow you around the rest of your life. So I would really recommend think long term rather than, oh, great, I can chill out, because all your friends won't be chilling out either. The next thing is a conditional offer, which is the most common, which is telling students what grades you need. Now, this year, again, we've seen a bit of a variation in the grades that have been advertised, which is again a reflection of their fantastic personal statements and references as well. So some students have actually, on the website it says you need an A-star AA or something, and then actually they get an offer for 3 Bs. That's really fantastic, but again, don't let that detract from you. Obviously, if that is achievable for your child, that's amazing, but that's the most common. And then the rejection is maybe because of the grades that you've got are not the grades they're looking for. I've sat down with each and every student before they've applied and made sure all 5 choices are, 2 of them are aspirational, 2 of them are not safe, and 2 of them are in the middle of the road. So I've done that with every single student, so I know that students should never be rejected from all of their choices, and most students will apply for only the offers that they absolutely will get with their predicted grades. So this is where we talk about our choices. So I have said to the year 13s a hard no on choosing their kind of choices yet, because ultimately you cannot make your choices unless you've heard back from all 5 universities or all 5 choices. So once you have done that, you can select the firm and insurance offers from what is being kind of offered for you. What I would advise is to just be really slow on that. The deadline for that is not until, I think it's the 9th of June. So if your student gets their results, their applications back from all 5 universities and the offers back, the deadline is the 9th of June. Now, we will make sure that they do that before the deadline, because if they don't do it before the deadline, they actually just get rejected from all universities. So we do make sure that we sit on them and make sure that they do that. But what I'm saying in terms of that offer kind of bit is that actually we need to really think carefully. And I know some of the students who are applying for university had only visited 1 or 2 of those universities. They actually might get offers from ones they haven't gone to. And I want them to be really sure that's the right place that they want to spend the next 3 or 4 to 6 years of their lives. So if students then receive their last offer, so if there was a bit like UCL last year, if their offers don't come until after May, they will then have to make their decision by the 21st of July. Now, on the UCAS website and on your students' UCAS hubs, you can see reply deadline. So you can check your reply deadline for each of them. And at the moment, they're mostly on the 9th of June. Now, you can only accept 2 choices, and that is a firm and an insurance. Now, if you have got an unconditional offer and you choose to accept that as your firm, you then don't get a insurance. And that's because that university will take you whatever grade you get. So you can only do 1 offer. Now, you have to reply to all your offers at the same time. So you can't choose a firm and then go and think about your insurance. You have to choose them both at the same time, which is why we're advocating a really kind of a holistically informed approach, and to make sure you're not rushing this and make sure you're making the right decision. Now, if you do make a mistake, as with all things with UCAS, for some reason, you always have 14 days to change. And again, just come and speak to me. And again, I'm happy, as you know, my door's always open. But if you are kind of struggling with which universities to put as your firm and insurance, come and speak to me, because I can help you and I know you, and we can go through some of the pros and cons. We can write a list or whatever of your universities that you might accept. Now, unconditional firm is when you get your unconditional offer and you put as your firm choice, so there's no need for insurance. Conditional firm means that you are in if you meet the conditions. You need to then consider what your clearing options are if you don't actually put another option in. Conditional firm and conditional insurance is what most of you guys will do. So when you go to accepting offers, there will be a page and you can go through each of the offers and select conditional firm and conditional insurance. Now, obviously, as Miss Boyd said, I mean, I did exactly what Miss Boyd said, which was I put both of my insurance and my firm as the same grade, and I'm not sure why I did that, but I did that, and I then had a very agonising summer. I think sometimes students know that if they don't get the particular grades, they would want to resit their exams. So it's okay in that instance if you know that actually the student would be really unhappy if they didn't get 4 Bs or 3 Bs or whatever, and actually would prefer to resit rather than go to an insurance university. But mostly I've sat with your students and made sure that they have got offers that hit the aspirational and the safe options. So that's what we really want to make sure that they're doing, is that if they miss that offer, they will be on the conditional insurance path instead. Now, if you do have a unconditional offer and you choose to use it as your insurance, that means you'll have a conditional firm and an unconditional insurance. And again, this is lots of words. This PowerPoint will be going out to all of you, so you can look through this, but just to help you with some of that wording before those decisions are made. Now, how to make the best choice? Obviously speak to family and friends, but also there are still open days. I know there's horrendous train strikes at the moment. There's virtual open days and there's in-person open days. And I think it really took for me to go, my university had a post-offer holders day where you went up and visited the city. And that was really helpful for me to see, actually, could I live? It's very far away from where I live. Can I go here? And lots of you might want to go and visit your unis one last time to make sure that's the right place for you. So there's lots of virtual open days. You can look at those on the UCAS website, but it's about being informed, because 3 years is a long time, and particularly with the fees being as high as they are, you want to make sure that your money is going to the right place and you're going to be a happy person in that place. There's also UCAS exhibitions you can go to. The final 2 things we're going to just whiz through is number 1 is student finance. So most students have opted to be doing the student finance option, which is basically applied through by the Student Finance England company. Now, we will be doing this as part of our form time. So if every student comes to form time, we will all register together on the 2nd of March. And that basically means that we know that all students have applied, because if they miss the deadline, they then can't get student finance that year. So we prefer to do that with the students, so that we know that they've all done it. But again, if you choose to do that, it doesn't open until the 2nd of March, actually. So we're doing it, I think it opens the week before that. So we're going to be doing it on the 2nd of March so that we know exactly who's applied for student finance. Now, the deadline for applications is the 20th of May for all students. Now, if you want to have a little look at what students will be eligible for based on household income, on this point is a calculator, so you can go and have a look at it, because actually there's a couple of different parts of student loan. So you have your tuition loan, which is where they pay it directly to universities, and then you have your maintenance loan or your maintenance grant. So maintenance loan has to be paid back with a pretty hefty rate of interest, unfortunately, and maintenance grant is for people whose situations would mean that actually they need a bit more money from the government that they don't need to pay back. So it's really important to kind of go through that system and make sure that you kind of put your right incomes into the income calculator, so you know what you're entitled for. And again, what I would say is there are some really expensive cities out there where their student loan and their maintenance loan won't be enough. So in those instances, it might be that students need to take a job, or parental support can then continue, because again, the average, and that might be something else to look at when you're looking at which ones to firm and insure. I went to Durham and a pint cost £1.20 and accommodation was pretty cheap as well. So that was a really good thing for me. But there are other universities which are much more expensive. So have a look at the average price of housing. So the next thing is with student finance, that to finalise the application, all students need to have a passport. So if that isn't happening, I know lots of people are going for passport appointments at the moment. You need a passport. You need a bank account to be paid into. Student bank accounts are brilliant. You get loads of money without any interest rates at all, but be careful with those. We'll be looking at that on Thursday form times. And you need to have evidence of a parent or guardian's income. Now, that's particularly relevant if the grants apply to you. And again, that can be a written employer letter, that can be a pay slip to prove that. So just make sure that those things are in place in order to process that. If you do not have a UK passport, you will need relevant settled status documents, that is because universities will charge you international fees unless that has happened, and they love doing that, and they love making people jump through various hoops because obviously you get about 35 grand a year for your international students. So what I would say is just to make sure if they've got 2 different passports, make sure the British one is put down on the forms, and make sure that there is settled status documents for anyone who doesn't have a British passport.
I think some universities do actually offer give you bursary. Some of the students need that, and I think I need to sort of raise in assembly, because I asked some students who had all their university fees paid, and people don't look at the little print. I know quite a few universities are actually offering, so if some of the students get like 3 A's or A star to A, some universities are actually giving them money they don't have to pay back for. So we just make sure we look at that. And just on the student finance, so people don't panic, if you miss the deadline of May the 20th, it doesn't mean you can't get student finance. People can do student finance the last minute, because some people don't apply to university onto the day of their results day, then they can fill in the student finance. So if you miss the deadline, it's not all matter of all, oh my God, it's the end of the world. So student finance, some people decided that they don't want to go to uni onto the day their results come out. You can still apply for student finance at a later date in case you do miss the date.
It's a little bit more complicated, so we're trying to get everyone to do it before the deadline, but yeah. So the next thing is accommodation, and this is the last thing we're going to talk about. So obviously when you go to university, you depending on which university you go to, so Oxford, Cambridge and Durham all have colleges attached to them, so you automatically go to the college accommodation for your first year, and most universities have residence, and these halls of residence, this is actually super important for you to understand, because if you go through this process and don't kind of firm up accommodation, you can end up in very far away accommodations or paying extortionately for the last remaining accommodation. So when students have made their choices on the 8th of June, they then can start applying for accommodation on their main choice of university, and accommodation can vary. They can be in swanky kind of penthouse apartment with an ensuite and a hot tub. They can also be in very much a shared flat. I actually shared a room in my first year in my college because that's the way it was cheaper, so I did that instead. So accommodation really matters. It can really change student experience, but it also can really drain the budget. So the halls of residence finder is on UCAS, and I would really recommend having a look at that. And again, if you go up to the universities you might want to look at, have a look through the halls of residence there, because it could be that you want to be in a flat with 12 other people. It could be that you want to go central, go far away, and whatever it might be, you want to be near the sports centre because there's a swimming pool there or something. Make sure you had a look at that and applied for student accommodation after the 8th of June, because ultimately this is again first come first served, and the cheap ones tend to go quite quickly. So it's really important that you make your decision about where you want to go and then apply for accommodation. Now, all the accommodation is also available on the university website about their halls of residence, and would really recommend for the first year particularly to make sure that you're with other students in a halls of residence. I've heard some stories about accommodation filling up and people having to do like kind of live with people who are kind of adults, and that doesn't seem to be the fun university experience. So making sure that we sort accommodation out. Now, some accommodation doesn't require a deposit, and just to be mindful of that, not all of them do. And again, if, for example, on results day you end up not getting into that university, that you then don't get charged for that deposit. But it's just really important to kind of have those conversations now. Sometimes there are deposits, not always, but there are deposits available for students to get that kind of place secured. So finally, adjustment and clearing. So that's basically just the idea that if you don't make the grades on the day, that we are here to support you as well. And again, if you are, none of you here said you were going to do apprenticeships, but we've been supporting students to do apprenticeships every Thursday morning, and that continues. And those applications don't finish, they start in December and they go over to May and June. So we'll be constantly supporting you on Thursdays in the IRC at 8:40. So sorry for the length of this. I just think there's some really important information that your children / wards might know, and then I thought I want you to know them as well. Is there any general questions, and then we can go into specific ones about particular students at the end? So is there any more general questions about anything that I've talked through so far? Yes.
you have to reject your first one. So if you get the grade, you don't want to go to the first one. What you have to do then, you have to ring and reject your first one, so your second one give you the offer.
And you can do that before.
Yeah.
You can do that before results day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
You got two choices. You can, let's say they did it before, there's a part of UCAS where you can actually change your courses automatic before the results day, or you can actually change it on the results day itself. So either, I think I had the biggest shock of my life when my son, I was expecting to call me, he hasn't called me, and I'm at school waiting for the kids. I'm having a panic, and I know my daughter's with him, he hasn't called me. I kept texting, how does he do? He hasn't called me, and the reason he hasn't called me, he decided that I'm not going to go into chemical engineering, I'm going to apply to do something completely different at a different university. Without even, so they can do that on the day, or they can do that before.
Yeah, I would also say that at university you can change course as well. So it's like slightly more complicated, but they wouldn't need a second personal statement to change for clearing. Clearing actually opens on the 31st of January, because actually by that point the courses know which courses are full or not. So you can have a little look at clearing before that date and work out what courses are, or they can take a gap year and reapply. So they can go to the university and try and change courses at the university. They can do what Mrs. Boyd said on results day. They can change or go before that, or they could take a gap year and potentially kind of figure themselves out a little bit more.
Yeah, just be careful. It depends. Not university likes you changing courses.
No, yeah.
Yeah, so I know things like Imperial and UCL and Oxford, Cambridge are very hard on that. They don't like people change courses only because a lot of people apply to go there, especially something like Imperial was a science university only. It's quite competitive. Certain universities don't like you changing courses. So when you're at the university, they prefer you to do it on a clearing day or before, rather than when you're actually at university. Yeah.
Any more questions? No, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming. If you've got any individual questions, come and speak to us now. But thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking your time out of your evenings. Thank you for those of you who are watching online as well.
Thanks.